Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our June 3rd Select Board meeting. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock this evening, and we'll start with public comment. Per the Select Board policy, public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between citizens and the Select Board. It is the citizen's opportunity to express his or her opinion on issues of town business. The board may respond to a public comment by taking it under consideration when deliberating on an agenda item or referring the item to the administration for appropriate action or response. Public comment shall be for a period of up to 15 minutes, with speakers being allowed 3 minutes to present their material. Is anyone here for public comment? If you could come to the podium and just give us your name and your address.
Hi, my name is Mahek Sanko and I reside at 8 Buckland Road, North Andover. I'm here with my friend Mariah Eskel for an environmental project. We were here last year for the William Sims project with the rest of our group. Today we'll be discussing an environmental project on mitigating the effects of pollution on marine life and hazardous electronic waste in the environment. I'll be talking about hazardous electronic waste on the environment. Improper disposal of electronic waste can have a detrimental impact on soil and agriculture. E-waste contains several toxic elements such as lead, mercury, and beryllium. When these elements are released into the environment, they negatively impact both human health and the environment. Pollution of these toxic elements is due to the unregulated process of e-waste, including burning, melting, and using acid baths to dispose of them. As a result, toxic elements are released into the ecosystems. This is particularly alarming since these toxic materials are non-biodegradable and will remain in the ecosystem for many years. For example, burning e-waste in landfills results in toxic elements being released into the environment as smoke. The wind pattern can carry these elements to enter the soil crop food pathway and enter the food chain, impacting humans and wildlife. This is a lithium-ion battery. This takes several months to be recycled and disposed of. If this tiny battery takes so long, what would happen to a car battery? Many people are buying electronic devices and also replacing them sooner to keep up with the growing trend. These advancing technology also results in difficulty recycling and separating these different components of electronic devices as the devices become smaller and more complicated to disassemble. Improving technology is really important, but not as important as preserving and keeping our environment safe. We have a few solutions for this. One of these include formal disposal, which is a formalized procedure for each component of the electronic, which will result in a greater yield of recycled products and the least harm to the environment. We also hope to educate people about the proper electronic disposal method and the consequences of e-waste. We can do this with 4 easy steps. We can employ awareness campaigns on educating the people about this. We can organize programs and initiatives in schools and workplaces. We can collaborate with media outlets to spread awareness on this issue. And we can encourage people to donate their electronic devices rather than throw them away with a potential tax break. This last one North Andover does about once a year. It's called the electronic drive. People give away their electronics. We can also encourage oversight on corporations to ensure that companies are following proper procedure when disposing of waste. We can do this by encouraging corporations to design their electronic devices for longer lifespans and better usability.
Good evening. I am Mariah Eskel and I reside at 10 Compass Point in North Andover. So I'm here to talk about pollution and the effects it has not only on global warming and how it worsens it, but also on our bodies of water and their health and the marine health. So we depend on our bodies of water economically for our quality of life and socially. And over the past century, or probably over, there have been many direct and indirect human activities that hurt the health of our bodies of water and the marine life. Examples of this are overfishing, throwing trash on a shore, etc. So marine pollution can really change the physical, chemical, and biological state of our oceans and our coastal areas. For example, this plastic bag. If I were to drop this in Stevens Pond right now, it could take 10 to 20 years to decompose. So can you imagine what it does to our marine life? These effects, though, sadly, are only local. We also have national and global effects. Some global effects include ocean warming and acidification. Ocean warming is caused by an increase of greenhouse gas concentrations. which sadly pollution could cause that. Acidification is caused by chemical reactions that occur which then hurt the marine life, and that's caused by marine pollution. We really want to address the cumulative effects that the pollution has not only on our generation, but the future generations. We want to make sure that we make it clear that our bodies of water are heavily polluted. And we want to reinform the importance of increasing the amount of increasing the amount of species and decreasing the amount of waste in our bodies of water. We want to call attention to increased resources. We also have 4 goals/solutions. Our first one is to give the public a voice and allow them to help us on solutions. Our second one is to encourage an increase in funding to nonprofit environmental organizations. Our third one is to make a policy so that licenses or permits are required to produce pollutants or to sell pollutants, for example, plastic. Another example is, as you may know, our state has a goal to completely go electronic regarding vehicles in 2035. So, for example, if it was 2036 and we were selling gas cars, the person who would be selling that would need a permit or a license of some sort. But our fourth goal is to impose a plastic tax of 5% per pound of virgin plastic, and that fund would go towards environmental projects or anything to help the environment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming, ladies.
Well, I'm definitely not as prepared as they are. That was a great presentation. Ryan Sharender, 60 Phillips Court, North Andover. So I'm here to talk about, later on this evening, the North Andover Housing Plan. So I took the time to read through it, just have some comments for you guys. So it's a great plan. It does a lot of detailed things in there, which I think is great. I don't think it goes far enough, though, and I just wanted to relate some comments to that. So one of the items I don't think this plan addresses, and I haven't seen any plan across the state address, is the quality of life. There's no survey that touches base with residents about quality of life related to this housing plan. And I think that's a big component, needs to be a component of it. One of the things, too, is I don't think it gets enough community input. They had 3 meetings. They had one in September of 2023, which I'm pretty connected with town, get all the emails. I don't ever remember seeing that one. That's probably on me, but I just don't remember seeing it. The second one was in December of 2023, right in the middle of the holidays. I mean, we all have holiday parties. It's really tough to attend another meeting at that point. And then the third one was a virtual one in April during school vacation week. Again, I don't think that's a great time to be having a discussion that's going to massively affect the future of the town. I just think it could have been a lot more meetings, a lot more input, and I would have liked to have seen more input. I would have liked to have seen more leaders get engaged, not just you, but other leaders that aren't so public engaged in the town. I get it. There's a housing crisis. Rosemary and I see it every day. The prices are crazy. Lauren and I talked the other day how the prices are just crazy, rent's insane. But I feel as though this plan is a very boilerplate plan that the state is putting out. And I get it, they have a housing initiative that they need to do, but every town is different. And this plan doesn't go into detail enough for our town. And I think it needs to be delayed and get more input. Now, I'm not going to be one to sit here and not say that I will help with that. I think if I'm going to come up here and talk to you, I need to be willing to help, I'm willing to engage. I'm willing to get other people to engage to help you guys with this plan. So please feel free to reach out with me on that. Another thing in this plan, it talks about accessory dwelling units. So accessory dwelling unit, the way that the state wants to do it, they want to allow by right any building in town to add a second unit that can be up to a 2-bedroom unit that anybody can rent. It doesn't have to be somebody related to you. So essentially, you might as well just get rid of zoning at that point. You're not, there's multifamily zoning and single-family zoning. You might as well just get rid of it at that point. I understand what the state's trying to do. I don't think that's the right plan. North Andover has a fantastic family suite bylaw that is very good. You apply to the town. You have to go to the ZBA. Every neighbor gets notified in that area that you're going to put this family suite in. It's 1 bedroom, limited in square footage size. The ADU is too, but family suite's a little bit smaller. And the biggest component of it is the person that lives there has to be related to the people that are living in that house. This works. It's worked in town. Most people are able to go through it, get approved, and I think it's the right way to do it. The ADU, creating a second unit, is not the way to do it. If you guys remember, I know a lot of you guys have been in town for a long time, in the early 2000s, in the R4 zoning district, I know 3 of you lived there, I don't know the other 2, I apologize. If you remember, developers were buying single-family houses, and they were adding a second unit to that house. Granted, there was huge second units, not like they're talking now, But the town went nuts because they were creating two families everywhere. My cousin lived next to one, and she was pregnant at the time, and she was super stressed about what this was going to create. And as a result, the town created a bylaw that now if you want to add a second unit, you have to go to the ZBA and get a special permit. If you put this ADU bylaw in place, that gets rid of that. It's a by right action that you're now going back 20 years. And you're going to have a lot of residents in this town that are going to be extremely upset. So I would ask that you take, I know you have to wait till the planning board votes on this tomorrow, which I hope I can make that meeting. I don't know if I'll be able to make it. I'm hoping they table their vote and that you get more feedback from the town. And again, I'm happy to help. Sorry, I can't stay tonight for the presentation. I got to pick up my kids, but please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to talk about it. Thanks, guys. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. Sorry. Joe Hicks, 49 Brad Street Road. 3 years ago, this board unanimously voted to approve and sign a proclamation that recognizes and proclaims each June as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month throughout North Andover. In addition to formally recognizing June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month, the proclamation stated that the North Andover observes Pride Month with a pride flag raising ceremony to honor the history of the LGBTQ plus liberation movement and to support the rights of all citizens to experience equality and freedom from discrimination. Several months ago, the Select Board voted to change its flag policy, and as we understand it, the new policy voids the commitment made in 2021. While I understand that the intent of the new policy is to prevent the board from becoming embroiled in public and legal disputes in the future, we must admit that we are disappointed. Hundreds of citizens advocated specifically for that flag to be flown by the town, and for some residents, seeing it fly was the first time they felt truly welcome here. As LGBTQ plus adults who grew up in places where no such sign of support existed, we can confidently say that for some young people, the flag carried a crucial message. Your community loves you, you belong. If we need to change the method from a flag to banners in order to deliver that message, we are willing to make that compromise. But when it comes to clearly and visibly expressing love and support for a community that is still struggling for basic civil rights, safety, opportunity, and respect, we are adamant. North Andover must never be silent. In addition to banners, we look forward to the board's approval of a Pride and Popsicles event on the town common. We are grateful to the Cultural Council for generously offering to sponsor the event and look forward to welcoming all friends and neighbors to join us in celebration. The first Pride events were a revolt against harassment and violence perpetrated on the LGBTQ plus community by their own government. As such, civil rights pioneers of past generations did not ask for permission to gather. Decades later, here in North Andover, a relationship of mutual respect with our local government affords our gatherings the place for much needed space to, for space needed for joy and relaxation. We hope you'll join us in raising a popsicle to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Hi, Kevin Doobie, 76 Boston Hill Road. I'm here to speak about the zoning bylaw, the housing production plan that you're going to be viewing later today. I went through the plan, and just briefly, a couple things jumped out to me very quickly. First, it said that between 2020 and 2050, we were expecting an increase from 30,915 people in 2020 to 32,366 people in 2050. That's about 1,500 people. Looking at the census, the numbers from July 1st, 2023, which were on the town's website, it already stated that we had 31,615 people, or an already 2.5% increase in the number in our population in just 3 years. Are we to believe that there's only going to be 750 more people in town in 2050 than there is today in 2024 or in July of 2023? And if so, how many housing units do we really need when we just put in the MBTA zoning, which allows what, by right, 1,200 plus units? I don't see that. I see that there's a problem there in the numbers, I guess. And additionally, I looked at some of the numbers on page 31. It lists several of the projects that have been recently completed in town. Between 2020, as of 2020, they said between 2020 and 2050, again, the 1,500 people. Right now, there's 2.63 people per unit. Even if you bring that down to 2, that's 750 units. In 2022 alone, we added 357 rental units between Princeton properties, 505 Sutton and the Avalon properties. Those two projects alone add up to 357 units, or 3.1% of our entire housing stock in town was added that year, all market rate apartments. If you go back to 2019 and add in Princeton properties, that's 549 market rate units 4.8% of our total housing stock just since 2019, all market rate apartments. What I don't see anything in this is where's the 12 to 1,800 square foot single-family detached home? That's why I moved here. I moved here because I could buy a 1,200 square foot raised ranch on a large lot that I could afford as a single person at the time. They qualified me on an income of like 75 grand, which a married couple easily would have had that. I could buy that house in town for that money. It had 650 square feet in the basement. I raised my children there until they were 10 years old. It was perfect middle-class home. That I don't see being built. I see apartments being built. I've heard over and over that when the moratorium happens, when all these things, we need these housing so that our kids will stay in town. My kids aren't going to stay in town. We currently live in a 2,500 square foot house on an acre of land with a pool in the backyard. Do you really think they're going to go, I love North Andover so much, I'm going to pay $3,500 a month to live in Princeton Properties in a two-bedroom? No, they're going somewhere else. You think when I downsize, when my house is paid for, I'm going to do the same thing? No, I'm going to go somewhere else. This housing production plan doesn't seem to be well thought through. The numbers don't seem to work out, and it causes serious concern for where the future of this town is going and what the plans really are. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else here for public comment? No? I think we can move on to the robotics team. Is everybody here? Yes? Yeah, good. You guys would come forward and talk to us about the competition and what you created and how you got. Oh, did you bring the robot? No.
The robot has been since deconstructed.
Okay. All right, so you guys can sit. You can sit up here if you'd like, wherever you guys want to.
Sure.
You can sit here. You can sit stand there. Whatever you want to do. Yeah, you're good. You can just tell us kind
I
of.
just want to make clear, this isn't the full team. Some people weren't able to make it due to scholarship night happening at the same time right now and work. But these are the three or half the team. I'm Jack. This is Noah and Nico.
So, yes, as you said, you have half the team. We each take on like different roles on the team, such as Jack. You want to go with yours?
Yeah. So everyone has a different role. I took on the role at competitions. I drive the robot with the controller. I'm a lead builder and designer in like decision making for the robot.
I'm another builder on the team, and Nico.
And I'm a programmer on the team.
So we compete in VEX Robotics. It's a little program run by our school, and it's international. Basically, how it works is that at the beginning of the season, you're given a game to build a robot for, and it has different rules and parameters that the VEX company gives out to you, along with some stock parts. And what you have to do is design a robot that can easily and efficiently compete against 4 other robots in a field. We have had pretty successful season. Jack, you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, so our season, we started as a team in like the middle of, or I guess beginning of 2023, towards the end of like that season that went until May. Our season ended early due to not qualifying for the World Championship, but I would say that like a lot of our failures at that time sort of fueled our passion and determination for the following season, where we had a lot of success due to starting extremely early. Right when it ended, we immediately started with testing new things, just building, testing, researching to see how we could improve immensely for the next season. And in this season, we have achieved 15 awards. One of them was at the World Championship, which was the Think Award, which is rewarded for like programming, like impressive programming. I don't know if Nico wants to talk more about that, because he was the programmer.
Since
Can I have you come to the
Yeah.
microphone just so that people at home can hear you?
with the program, we created a PID loop which makes the robot execute commands incredibly easily, like moving forward and turning accurately and quickly to be able to beat the other opponent in reaching whatever they need to reach. Like in this game, you would have to reach a tri-ball that's in the middle. So a robot would be able to reach the tri-balls in the middle faster than the enemy team and also complete it accurately, even if it were thrown off course.
And through our execution of the program, we were able to kind of build off of that throughout the season. So at the beginning of the season in July. So we had Nico research all this into the PID loop and making his own program, as opposed to other teams who kind of got like a library off the internet and kind of adapted it to fit the robot. He built it entirely from scratch, and by him doing that, he was able to have multiple commands execute at the same time, allowing the robot to kind of drift around instead of having to take the standard like move forward, pause, turn right. Like he was able to, since he was able to execute multiple codes of this, multiple lines of code at the same time, it sped up our cycle a lot, allowing us to be able to achieve that award from the World Championship, and it was a huge change in our competition.
And many of the other awards that we achieved were due to, throughout the season, you have to work on an engineering notebook to document your progress and like your future plans of the robot. Ajaya, who's not here, is the notebooker for our team, but he put in a ton of work throughout the season of like making our engineering notebook like extremely well developed, well explained, well organized, so that when the judges were reading it, they were able to know our like exactly how we developed each part of the robot, how we went throughout the season with decision making, and his work on that made it so we could get, I believe, we got 4 excellence awards, and all of those, and 1 amaze award, all of which were based off of the engineering notebook that were reviewed by judges at every competition. And the 4 excellence awards were the highest like possible judged award you could achieve at those competitions.
And I guess the thing we're most proud of for this entire season is that by us like doing so well in these competitions, we were able to get more funding for our robotics program, and then it kind of leaves the next couple teams going into this next season in a better set of hands, so they can go to more competitions and kind of get our name out more. Because there's competitions like such as the one called Wave at WPI, where teams from all over the world can go to and sign up for, and they're by you doing well at those competitions, it gets your name out like internationally. So you get a lot more support in that community, and it also puts our state on a higher tier for robotics as a whole.
Anything else?
That's wonderful. Does anybody have any questions?
It's very
No.
exciting.
Yeah.
They made a movie similar to what you guys talked about. I don't know, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a really good movie that I watched just a few weeks ago, actually. So, yeah, congratulations. It's great. All of it's great.
If there's any questions, we could explain anything in more detail. There's a lot
Oh,
of
you're,
stuff.
you're talking to the wrong person. I practically throw this thing across the table.
We're all seniors.
Yes, congratulations. Where you guys, what do you have to do next year?
The 3 of us are actually all going to WPI,
Fabulous.
but the
Good
other
school.
members of the team are individually going to separate colleges.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's so nice that we live in Massachusetts and have like we're kind of like in the epicenter of all the robotic advancements, like from Boston Dynamics and Symbotic. So it's a great place to live and get like involved in this like whole community.
Well, we all just toured Amazon and saw all the robots that they've got working over there, so.
Yeah, we I don't know if we're still gonna go see it, but we had like friends, and we have high school alumni who work at Amazon
Oh,
Robotics,
perfect.
and they
That
were
would be-
like huge helps during
Yeah.
the season.
Yeah. And they have the design centers in North Reading, right? Or close
Yeah.
by? So that's fabulous. We have a couple citations for you guys. Or does your coach have anything to add?
Only that.
Oh, we have to have you come, sorry.
Only that these guys were the heart and soul of this program this year, and they are leaving the North Andover Robotics program in such better shape. It was already in great shape, but moving forward, they have really inspired the next generations to come to kind of reach for the stars. I would give them hours of my time many days a week, and even if I gave them hours more, it wouldn't be enough for them. They would sleep there if they could have. So these guys are amazing. I don't know how any year can top this, but we'll all try, right? So.
And you guys went to the World Championship, correct?
What's that?
You went to the World Champion?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we did, and they did great. So, and we had Team C go with them as well, and they're hard at work. They were there up until 5:30 today, actually working on the robot for this next year's competition. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, starting off strong.
Talk about thinking ahead.
Right?
Yeah,
I know.
right. Well, you get bit by the bug, as these guys can attest. It's almost an addiction in a way, you know. So, well, it definitely is. So. But a good one, right?
Yeah, a good one.
Yeah.
Well, we're very proud of all the hard work that you guys have put in. I've got a rising 8th grader who's likes robotics, so. So we have 2 citations for you guys in recognition of the successful participation in the VEX Robotics World Championship of 2024. So congratulations to you guys for that. And we have, in recognition of winning an award at the VEX Robotics World Championship 2024, Team 8568A qualified by being a top skills contender against the clock and receiving a Think Award for excellence in programming. So thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate it. You guys definitely don't need to stay. You don't need to stay. You'll be here for a long time.
We will not be offended by that.
Oh,
Congratulations. What a fun thing.
so cool, right?
Smart cookies.
Yeah, definitely smart.
Yeah, you can tell. 10 sentences in, you can
Yep.
tell.
And they're all well-spoken, too. So we'll move on to the housing production plan. Andrew Shapiro, Zach, Jean, nope, just Zach, okay, all right. Ian, sorry, I'm sorry.
2 young people working together.
Yeah, I know.
Shocked they didn't want to stay for the housing. I thought this was exciting stuff.
They looked like they felt like they needed to.
They needed to, yeah.
It's okay. Very polite.
Good to be with you all. Am I doing the presentation from up here?
Oh my God, that science writes.
Whatever is
Is
easier
it,
if you want
it's
to.
blinding a little bit, yeah. Might stay at the right elevation.
I have it ready to go if you want me to just plug in. Thank you.
I have sunglasses, but I'm not wearing
Maybe in 5 minutes it'll go away.
Beautiful. I just turned it on. There you go. Good to be with you all this evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Ian Burns. I'm joined by Kayla Rennie. We're with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission's Community and Economic Development team. We have, of course, been working with the town over the past year to help shape the town's next iteration of its housing production plan. You may have seen us popping in and out before, working on MBTA communities with the town. So all things housing in the Merrimack Valley right now that we have been focusing on. For those that are unaware, either here today or watching at home, the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, we're a quasi-state agency that supports the 15 cities and towns of the Merrimack Valley region. So we help everybody from Lawrence to the coast in Newburyport. We are not directly under the state governor's administration. We are our own independent agency, and we work for the cities and towns of the Merrimack Valley. So everything we do is for our communities. So we want to guide you through tonight the housing production plan that has been drafted to date for the town, talk a little bit about what a housing production plan is, and then summarize the contents. There's a lot in the document that you probably received ahead of the meeting. It's about 35 pages full of data and summaries and analysis for housing for the future of the town. We're going to highlight a couple things here. I'm going to try and breeze through these 20 slides so that it's not too long and arduous, but happy to take questions throughout the presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about the data, a little bit about the plan's contents, and then the summary of recommendations coming out of this. Before we hop into that, just so folks are aware, what exactly is a housing production plan? So although it is a state guided plan and there are state regulations for how to write a housing production plan, it really is a community's vision for the future of housing in that community, and it is a current assessment of the housing conditions in that city or town. They are a statutory requirement in order to allow some control over future 40B development. So if the town has an approved housing production plan and then is also producing a certain amount of affordable housing, even if you haven't reached that 10% threshold under 40B, you can receive protection from 40B development. So that's kind of the timeliness of the plan right now. North Andover's HPP is expired, and so we're trying to get a new one registered with the state so that you are one step closer to hopefully receiving some safe harbor from future 40B developments. But as a whole, we really want this to be a plan for the town to articulate what exists right now in the community for housing and where we want to go. So like I said, the previous one expired in 2023. This update began in 2023. We've been working with the Planning Department, the Housing Authority, and the Affordable Housing Trust throughout this process. We had 3 public engagement meetings as a part of this process. So there was a virtual meeting in September, an in-person meeting in December, and then another virtual meeting in April to receive some public feedback about the current conditions of housing and what folks want to see for the future in North Andover. The plan has 5 main chapters. I'm going to spend a little bit on each chapter, a couple of slides in each during this presentation. But these are all, these main chapters are kind of the statutory requirements the state sets forth and what we have to have in the plan. And then within those chapters, we'd like to try and customize it to what the town and residents want to see. So the first chapter, we're not going to go through the details of it because it is just a community overview. You can read it in the plan. Talks about kind of North Andover, where it sits right now in the region, and how it compares to other like communities across the state and across the region, and some few key statistics that we note throughout the plan. We kind of call up in that community overview section. The second chapter is demographic profile and household trends. So I'm going to dig in a little bit here and show you some key data points that we consider as we work our way through the plan and what is included in the plan itself. We heard a few comments earlier about some of the data that's in there, so I'd be happy to speak to some of those areas and where those numbers come from and how it's structured and informs the entirety of the plan. So starting out with North Andover's population trends and projections through 2050, so this goes back to the census in 1990, and then based off of the growth over the last 20 years or so, the state partners with the UMass Donahue Institute, which creates projections based off of current trends in migration, death rates, birth rates, and housing production rates and others to project what the population might look like over the next 30 or so years. And so all those blue numbers are census data, and then the orange numbers are projections over the next 30 years or so. Those are based off of the 10-year census data. If you were to look at, for example, American Community Survey data, which I believe the town has on its website right now for 2023, the numbers are going to be slightly different, and that's mostly because they're different data sets. So the American Community Survey takes a cohort, a smaller sample size across a community, and then estimates a 5-year estimate of population. The 10-year census is that census form that every single person fills out, and those are slightly more accurate numbers, which is what we go off of for projections. So you may find during that 10-year period between 2020 and 2030 that the ACS data is going to vary, and there is a margin of error in ACS data because it's based off of a smaller sample size. But generally, we see those trends occurring where the population is increasing at a moderate pace, projected to level off. North Andover is not alone in that, where we see an increase, but not a huge increase like we may have seen in the later half of the 20th century. The other important thing we'd like to keep in mind, along with those population growth trends, are the demographic trends for town. And so what are the various age cohorts going to look like, what they look like in the past, and what will they look like in the future? The key here that we typically point out is that blue line, which represents the 65-plus population. So you'll see back in 2010, the 65-plus population made up about 13% of the population in town. By 2050, that's projected to double to about 27% of the population. So we're seeing a significantly aging population in North Andover, and that is reflected not only here in North Andover, but across many communities in the region and state. So what we want to think about is what will that aging population need in terms of housing options, and we'll talk about that when we show some of the strategies that have been outlined. One of the other key data points we think about is school enrollment. North Andover, again, pretty similar to other communities of its type in this region, where we have seen maybe a slight increase in the first half of this century, or in the first decade of this century, but then we started to see a plateau and even a little bit of a dip in the past couple of years. So it's interesting to observe those school enrollment numbers, even as we see housing production happening. There's been some really great studies that have been done across the entire state over the past couple of years that have demonstrated really a lack of correlation between housing production and school enrollment, where there is generally concern that large development will bring in a lot of school children, but we actually don't see that very often at all in most communities. We don't see a correlation in housing production, especially multifamily housing production, because it tends to be studio 1 and 2 bedrooms. Where we see any correlation would be if you have large subdivisions being built of large single-family homes. Those tend to bring in school children more often. One of the other data pieces we like to point out is the housing unit size versus housing unit occupancy. So this may speak to if the population right now, if the housing stock matches population needs. And so we took these numbers from the Census Bureau and updated them with some recent construction that's happened in town. And what this shows us on the left is the housing breakdown by occupancy, how many people are living in housing units, and on the right is how many bedrooms are in those housing units. And so for a summary, what you can see is in North Andover, 1 or 2 person households make up 54% of the homes, but 1 or 2 bedroom homes make up 38% of the housing stock. So there is a little bit of a gap there where if folks that are in 1 or 2 person households, maybe empty nesters, if they want to downsize, they're competing for a smaller slice of the pie in terms of housing stock for smaller housing units. We certainly expect there to be a gap because we know not everybody wants to downsize. I think of my parents that are still living in their 4-bedroom home and they're empty nesters. They might not want to downsize, and that's totally acceptable. What we know is that when you have a situation like this, you're restricting the options for folks to downsize into. Not only that, but you're restricting the options for new folks to get their start in town if they don't need a 4-bedroom home off the bat. On the flip side, we see 3 or more person households make up 45% of North Andover homes, while 3 or more bedroom homes make up over 60% of the housing stock. So despite the increase in smaller units over the past couple years in North Andover with a good amount of multifamily housing production, we do still see a lag in the amount of smaller units that the population may need in town. And now I'll just show a couple data points about some local housing conditions. This first one speaking to what I was just saying in the actual housing production in town. The most significant thing that jumps out to us on this chart is that multifamily production. And so the bars in this chart are the number of units per year that are produced, and then the coloring is the type of structure those units are produced in. And so you'll notice the last 5 years, for example, almost all of that housing was coming from multifamily units. So you had a couple of large developments come in. That's why we see a pretty good spike in 2021, and a more moderate, although a good spike in 2022 of multifamily housing production. Over the past 23 years, we've seen a lot of growth in town and a good amount of multifamily production signified by those spikes. But the most consistent we see has been single family, where every year you have several single family homes permitted in town. This data based off of housing permit data from the town that is reported to the Census Bureau and other agencies. This other data point that we think is really significant is cost burden data. So when we say the term cost burden, we mean a household pays more than 30% of their gross income towards housing. So that's your pre-tax income. In North Andover, we see that half of all renters are cost burdened. So that means half of the renters in town cannot afford the rent they are currently paying. For ownership, we see 1 in 4 renters are also cost burdened. So a quarter of owners in North Andover cannot afford their housing costs at this time. And overall across town, we see 1 in 3 households are cost burdened. And so that's pretty significant. It's not unlike a lot of other communities. We see 50% of renters cost burdened across most cities and towns in our region, actually. That doesn't mean it's a good thing. Think about the economic impacts that has when you have less buying power because all your money is going towards rent. You now can't patronize the restaurants and shops in your town and those small businesses because you have less money in your pocket at the end of the month. And then one more tidbit about affordability in town. Another thing we analyze is what's called the affordability gap. So we look at the current median sale price for households in town and how that matches up with the current median household income in town. So in North Andover right now, the median household income is $118,000. With that income, a household could afford up to a $439,000 home, and that's based on current interest rates and if you have a 20% down payment. This also is including or accounting for potential costs for taxes and insurance. So you could afford that size home. However, the 2023 median home sale price was $648,000 in North Andover. That's across all housing sales. So that means there's an affordability gap of about $209,000 in town. And so you have incomes that are not keeping pace with the cost of homes. And so what I like to give this comparison to is a lot of folks that have been in town for a while, you can think about the current value of your home and would you be able to buy the home that you're living in today if you moved into North Andover. That speaks to that affordability gap and where that is in our next generation of residents being able to move into town. Before we move into the sections where we talk about some considerations and recommendations, I wanted to pause if there's any questions on all those numbers.
I've got a handful of questions.
Yeah,
Sorry.
please.
So you mentioned we're technically kind of out of compliance because the plan is expired. So does that mean, are we not currently under safe harbor right now if 40B showed up?
Regardless of your approval of this plan, you would not be in safe harbor because you have to both have the plan and be producing affordable housing at a certain rate. And so there's no penalties for you currently being out of compliance, but you're basically, you need to check 2 boxes, and right now you're checking neither of them.
Right. So we are at risk
Right.
from 40B in that regard.
Because we're
Okay.
significantly under our 10%.
Right.
We're at
And so
8,
in the
yeah.
plan, on one of the pages, I don't have it in slides here, but there is a table that shows how many affordable units you'd have to produce in 1 year to achieve safe harbor. So if you produce a certain amount of units, even if you haven't reached that 10% threshold, you
Yeah.
can achieve that safe harbor for 1 or 2 years.
59 for 1 year, and I think 119 for 2.
Yeah,
give or
that might
take.
be it. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
But if we get to that point, then we're back protected. I want to talk a little bit about the age distribution chart that you showed there. How does that track with statewide numbers?
It's pretty similar.
It's very similar throughout
And
the region?
I can only speak to Eastern Massachusetts. I don't think I've looked at all of the state, but it's pretty similar where we're seeing an aging population.
Okay. And then I think that, I mean, kind of goes to a number of my comments on a lot of the data, and I don't know if it's possible to put this in the plan, but to the extent possible to make sure it's kind of put in context of state and regional data
Yeah.
as well, because seeing the number for North Andover without that extra context may be a little bit challenging for some of us to say, okay, where do we stack up? And my last question on school enrollment data, it stopped at 2020.
Yep.
Can we go through 2023? I mean, we have that data at this point, right?
Yeah, we can go back and see what was reported to
I don't want people
from the
looking at it
town.
and saying, well, that was COVID, of course it went
Yeah,
down. I want to make
yeah.
sure that people understand the actual numbers post then.
Certainly.
That's all my questions, sorry.
Do you have questions? Questions? So, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just being a little, did anybody check, today, are there any $489,000 houses for sale in North Andover? Because I don't think so.
Not unless it's a one-bedroom condo,
I can tell
probably.
you it's probably no.
Right.
Right, so, yeah. So the aging population that we're seeing, it also correlates to the trend of the younger generation leaving the Massachusetts, right?
Right.
Which is problematic for our employers, right? And,
Yeah.
We will not be able to keep the lead in robotics
Yes.
if
Yeah.
those
If the
children
children cannot
they
live
leave
here.
Massachusetts.
Yeah, and to that point, the interesting kind of bit of news that came out maybe a month or so ago, there was a great survey done of young residents in Eastern Massachusetts, including this region, and 25% of them said that they were unlikely to be in this area in 5 years, and the number one reason they reported, number 1 and 2 was rent and homeownership attainability. And so we're losing those young people because of that, and this town will be, like many other communities, in losing those young people. And so if no other questions, I'm going to keep moving forward to stay on time here. So infrastructure and environmental constraints. So there's a couple things in the plan that we just talk about for the town to keep under consideration. We don't go into detail about what the biggest risks are for the community because you have other plans that have done that, but we do kind of a brief discussion of the things to keep in mind when considering housing production and the appropriate locations for production, like open space protections and preservation, drinking water supply, and public sewer availability and capacity. And so there's just a couple things that are discussed to that regard in the plan. And then we also take some time to discuss the zoning constraints and what currently exists in town, what the current zoning is, and what the availability is for multifamily housing to be zoned in the future. We haven't updated this since your town meeting, but now, of course, there is your 3A zoning that allows multifamily by right. That's the first district in town that allows it by right, since the other ones that are by right trigger a site plan review, which triggers a special permit. I'm going to hand it over to Kayla to talk a little bit about the housing production strategies at the end of the plan now.
But before we jump to that, can I just
Yeah.
ask one more question
Go ahead.
on considerations regarding infrastructure? You don't address traffic or town services at all. Is that intentional, or is there a reason why not, or?
Yeah, and so it's a couple of things. Number one being that the traffic conditions are difficult to discuss when we don't have a specific project in mind. And so when we're not looking at a specific site and how many units, it may be challenging to put that into context. In terms of the impact on services, we can put numbers in there of what we've seen in other communities and even what North Andover's analysis have done on other developments. We don't spend a ton of time talking about it out of concern for, again, what the specific development may be. Generally, if we were to talk about it, we usually talk about overall what the fiscal impacts tend to be for housing development. And in North Andover and in other communities, we've seen larger developments tend to pay for themselves, but I would hesitate to make that conclusion without knowing the development. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
All right.
So hopping right in here, we want to talk about some of the housing production strategies that we've crafted throughout this process. So the first one I wanted to chat about was the adoption of an accessory dwelling unit bylaw. So this is something that the town has been exploring in recent years. It's actually something that was brought up in a survey this past fall. I know there were some concerns mentioned earlier about any changes to the ADU bylaw, but just want to highlight that in this survey, most residents were in favor of reviewing the bylaw and potentially updating it. So just wanted to mention that here. Currently, the town allows for that in-law suite bylaw, as we mentioned earlier, but this is something that we want to look at doing in the future, maybe allowing for attached or detached structures, potentially by right, in order to make it easier for the construction of these units. The state is also exploring allowing ADUs by right as part of their housing bond bill. So this is something that is going to be hopefully coming out soon through the legislature. So we're kind of waiting to see what that process will look like if the state legislature approves that bill, what that effect would be for North Andover. But this was something that was brought up throughout the process, especially through community engagement. Something else to mention here as well is investigating ways to expand opportunities for village center and downtown zoning and consider rezoning of the downtown. So the town has already begun this work before. We definitely want to highlight all the ongoing housing work that the town has been doing. So wanted to highlight here some of the opportunities that we're looking into for the downtown. So this includes things like mixed-use development, providing opportunities for connecting both, residential uses and commercial uses in your downtown area, allowing for additional density in the downtown, really wanting to create that walkable, vibrant community center that we see many residents, searching for. So something that we're looking at, encouraging here is improving some of these gateway opportunities and looking at some of these smart growth strategies in order to kind of facilitate some of this housing production. A third strategy we had included in here is to reach and maintain compliance with the MBTA communities law. So as of the time that we were drafting this, it was something that North Andover was proposing but hadn't voted on yet. Of course, town meeting did vote to approve that, which is great. So we'll be including this mostly as a way to maintain that compliance and to highlight the work that's been done there. Another thing to mention here as well, which is very interesting, is investigating models that address creation of starter homes or homes to downsize that are right-sized. So people talk a lot about, what we call starter homes, but I feel like that term's actually misleading. Sometimes it might be a great opportunity for, a young couple that is getting their start, they want that smaller unit. But we also look at opportunities for smaller housing types to accommodate, this aging population that we see, folks that might want to downsize into homes, maybe a one-floor living type situation that might be more accommodating to their needs. This was also heard throughout the community engagement sessions that we've been doing, is that there's a real need for those type of units in town. One way that we're looking to address this is with the creation of a starter home district. So the state has created what's called Chapter 40Y, which allows for the zoning of certain areas to allow for these smaller housing types. So think smaller lot sizes, smaller square footage, that kind of thing. So this is definitely something that we're encouraging the town to look into. Something to highlight here as well is there's a lot of benefits for the community to pursue this type of district. If you create this district, you'll be able to get incentive payments from the state, and then every housing unit that you create from that district will also receive a bonus for that as well. So definitely a lot of incentives there, not just in terms of creating the housing, but also the benefits to the town. I know that this was kind of brought up a little. I know. Yeah. I know that there was some concerns brought up earlier about encouraging, not just multifamily housing, but some of these single-family style homes that we want to see in town. And this is a really great way of addressing those needs while also creating those kind of smaller housing units that also might be a lot more affordable than, 4 or 5 bedroom home that, is not going to be affordable for the average resident making that median income.
Yeah, the unique thing about this area is that it does get at that detached single-family home, starter home that a lot of folks are looking for.
Another strategy to mention as well is to conduct ongoing community engagement on housing development and challenges. So something to mention here as well, I know it was talked about earlier, that, folks were hoping for some more community engagement. And of course, that's something that we're open to as well. The way we look at this housing production plan process and our role as your regional planning agency is, we want to continue working with the town on community engagement. This was not something where, we're going to come in, talk to residents, and then we'll come back in 5 more years. We want to really keep those conversations going and work with the town to continue working on that, whether that's through, community meetings or maybe surveys that can be done. We really want to create that conversation and keep that going. And then, of course, retaining Housing Choice Community designation. So the town has received this designation twice, which allows you to apply for exclusive grant programs, and you also get preferential treatment when applying for other grants. So we just wanted to include this as well as a good goal because the town's already achieved this before, and we want to keep the town in compliance with this as well. Another strategy to mention here as well is to participate in regional collaborations addressing housing development. So this is something that we see, as mentioned, we want to see not only what North Andover is doing, but what the rest of the region and the rest of the state is doing as well. So we feel like this is a really important strategy because, as we know, when it comes to housing production, it's not just up to one community to solve the housing crisis, right? So we want to really kind of look at that regional collaboration and see what opportunities there are to build upon that. And of course, as we mentioned before, as your regional planning agency, that's part of our role as well, is to kind of keep our eyes and ears on what's going on throughout, the valley. Another strategy as well is to continue to assess opportunities for the town and Affordable Housing Trust to work together to identify possible property acquisitions for affordable housing reuse. So this is a great strategy here. We wanted to include potentially looking at, sites in town that could be used for future affordable housing. This is something that, we would love to get over that 10% as we had talked about. So this is a really great strategy here to encourage that and to help reach that number.
When we met with the Affordable Housing Trust, they expressed a desire to be doing more of that work, noting that right now in town there aren't really many town-owned sites that are fit for affordable housing reuse. We see in other communities, if it's an old school, like maybe what the town did with, I was going to say Kittredge School, but it was Bradstreet School, thank you, several years ago, and other properties that don't exist right now in town. So just assessing when something might come on the market, if it makes sense for the town to purchase for affordable housing reuse, especially through the Affordable Housing Trust. So the next steps here, number one, feedback from you all on what you might want to incorporate and what you're not seeing in here that you think is important, or steps that you think need to be taken to make this the right housing production plan for the town. The planning board has reviewed it. They gave feedback at their previous meeting, and tomorrow they're scheduled to vote on their recommendation based off of some recommendations they gave us and some incorporations we've made since then. Depending on the planning board's vote and potential recommendation, then it would come back to you all for your potential vote and approval. Once that's approved, it goes to the state for their review and approval. Both the planning board and select board must approve the plan before the state reviews it. And then after that, like Kayla said, we are not here to drop the plan and leave. A lot of our work will be helping the town and tackling those strategies over the next few years. So happy to take any questions on that and any other comments before we end today.
Yeah, I have a comment. So when a lot of people in my generation started out, they bought the fixer-upper. They did. Or they bought a small condo, made some money, sold it, then bought the fixer-upper. It's almost like we should be telling maybe some of our young people that, take a chance on the fixer-upper, fix it up, sell it, go to your next goal in house. It's done in steps. It's not all done at once. You can't just, graduate from college 2 years out and then you're buying $1 million house. It doesn't work like that. And I'm just wondering if there are programs or educational programs that could, teach some of these things to the younger generation that does want the single-family house. They might not want small housing. They want something like they perhaps grew up in. But I think you've got to keep that option on the table. Learn, paint, do some small carpentry, fix it up, and then you can market that and hopefully make some more money to buy a bigger and better house or just a better house.
Yeah.
So.
The really hard part, though, is there aren't, as you know, there aren't those
There
available.
are, but sometimes,
They do come up.
$750,000 for a house that needs to be.
no, I
knocked down.
understand, believe me, I understand what you're saying, but it's also, you can start with a condo that's just very tired, you know, still has its 70s motif, and fix that up, sell it, or keep it as investment property and rent it. But I think,
To your point, though, when there was more housing stock, that was a more viable option for people. It's, that's just a numbers game more than anything.
I think a lot of people that aren't buying right now and is the fact that it is high. They could sell their house and then now they got to find another house. And they might not have enough money to buy the other house. So now they're renting and the rents are higher than their mortgage payments. So now they're going through their cash unless they have a family member who maybe has a property that would rent to them, or let them stay there for free or whatever. But if that doesn't get you, maybe the 8 or 9% interest rates will finally kill the deal. And then they've gone through their money and they don't have anything. That's the risk. So,
Yeah, so in terms of education, most of the education out there are first-time home buyer programs, and there are some great agencies that do that to work with, especially young people.
It's not you,
and
it's
also
the
first-time-
sun.
No, I'm just glowing. Unfortunately, there are some problems out there with young people's accessing that because there are no or very few fixer-uppers and also very few condos just available for purchase. We did an analysis as a part of the MBTA community zoning and looked at condo sale prices in town, and there were so few condo sale prices that it was hard to even get a median sale price for condos in North Andover.
you're not wrong. I'm a real estate broker.
Yeah,
I'm watching the
yeah.
numbers all the time.
Yeah.
But I think, sometimes you have to make sacrifices, not get the house of your dreams right off the bat, but you just keep building up, building up, building up until you get perhaps what you want. And it takes a little time, but I just, sometimes we'll have people that'll walk into a house or an open house and you'll hear them say, "Oh my gosh, this is a total gut." And it's like, no, it's a little bit of paint and wallpaper and cleaning up, and just like your grandparents did, so it was just another avenue to put something else on the table that you might be able to tell them, keep your eyes open for this. Maybe it won't be the community you wanted immediately, but sometimes you got to work your way into it. I think if you, as I said, had stories with with the kids in particular, with their grandparents and parents, they would find that they didn't buy a really great brand new house right out of the gate. They just didn't. They got to build up to it. And we've got a couple other realtors here. They might want to chime in or tell me I'm
I don't
wrong.
think we live in that world anymore. I think that's part of the challenge right now is a lack of availability, right? And I think at the first house that we did the same thing my wife and I did, when we were doing it. And to Ian's point earlier, we couldn't afford the house that we were able to get back in 2007 when we first moved to town. There's no way we'd be able to afford that right now, unfortunately. And I agree with you. It's sweat equity, right? That's the
term, yeah.
I did it in my current house now.
And I've done it in two
Yeah,
houses.
and I think, and you must see this all the time, of young folks who are settling and can't believe the price they're paying to settle for a house, right? And it's
Well, the prices
yeah.
are pretty overwhelming. There's no question about it.
Correct. So,
Can I go back to the starter home district? I'm
Yeah,
really
certainly.
interested in that. I'm just curious if you can give me an example of some place that has a starter home district, and I'm also curious, what I hear repeatedly is that is not something that is of interest to developers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they can't make money on it because the cost of land is so much. So, can you just talk about it for a minute?
Certainly. And so, number one, there haven't been communities that have adopted it because the state hasn't yet finalized the regulations for the district. We're expecting the draft regulations this summer. So this was a statute that was passed recently, just a couple of years ago. And they're creating regulations to guide communities in how to adopt those. There are several communities that have studied it and are kind of teeing themselves up for when the regulations are released, to the point of developers potentially not wanting to invest because it's not profitable. As a part of drafting those regulations, I mean, I wasn't in those conversations, but I know the state conducted focus groups of developers in the area to get their feedback on what would make it economically feasible for them to build. And so I'm anticipating those regulations sometime late summer, and then they hope to finalize them by late fall. So
That's
then, if it's something the town
watching.
wants to pursue, then we would watch and see what those regulations are and think about it in future years.
If you want to envision, I think there was a district, I think there was an article in the Globe recently about a district in Medfield. I think that got built, very similar structure to that. But I don't know if it certainly wasn't under this program.
But we go back to the land availability, right? And there,
Right.
and particularly in North Andover, there's not much
Right.
big parcels of land.
No,
Right.
right.
Where that could, even if you're talking about a quarter acre, or even
Small
smaller.
lots, yeah.
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 And so we are waiting to see how they define where the district can go, because again, you get a payment for creating the district, and so the state wants to see some production if they're paying you to put in the zoning. It's very similar to 40R, where the town has a 40R district, you get a payment for that. You have to show a certain amount of developable land, and I don't know yet what that will look like for this.
Kind of to build off of that real quick, so the state is gonna give us a payment to build these houses or, multiple single-family homes. Are they going to support us with infrastructure?
So the answer is yes and no. So yes, being that there are grant programs available that the town would be eligible for, and you get kind of bonus points for having housing best practices established. There is a new state grant program called the Housing Works Infrastructure Program, and that program is specifically for infrastructure to support housing development. And you are more likely to get that grant if you have designated zoning districts for multifamily or a 40Y starter home district like this one. And so you get like an extra point towards that grant application. So it's not automatic, but it makes you more competitive to get those funds.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interject.
No, it's just an interesting, I just hadn't heard of it before, but
Yeah,
now I
no,
understand
now
why.
why, yeah.
So,
Well, one thing on the 40Y, and based on the fact that it's not adopted, you may not know the answer to this, but have you seen any other programs that may price restrict, where it can only appreciate a certain amount? I remember my brother bought his first condo in Brighton, it could only appreciate 5%. Right, and that, but that property stayed that way, right? Because it can be affordable at the outset, but that's only going to survive one sales cycle. A deed restriction, yeah, that caps the amount of profit that you can make on it, to keep it affordable for the next, as you grow out of it. I think it was like 5% or something. You don't go backwards, and it's always going to go one direction, but just
Yes,
something to
exactly
keep it
that.
a starter home district, yeah.
Yeah, a deed restriction, and if they're designated affordable units and on the subsidized housing inventory, then like if you buy it.
You apply.
And then you go to resell it later on, you would have to be selling it at that
Yeah.
affordable price.
Right, okay,
You can't just
got it.
sell it.
But that becomes a lottery, right? To some extent, I mean, that's what happened. I remember some condo units in Andover, they were affordable units, right?
Yes,
then
and
they
only
didn't-
if they're designated affordable units. So it's
Yeah.
not a guarantee every unit in this 40Y for you to create the zoning is affordable and would be deed restricted.
Right, okay.
But there may be ways to require affordability. We'll see what the regulations say.
Is 40Y affordable housing district similar to 40B, or is it not necessarily?
Not necessarily, and not that I'm aware of. I'd have to double check in the statute language, but I don't think so.
Regarding ADUs, have you seen any ADU districts created that can restrict the primary residence to owner-occupied to address the developer concern that we heard earlier?
Yes, we have seen that. One of the things we're watching, so as of right now, you can do that. So you can say it has to be an owner-occupied primary or secondary unit. So
Yep.
we usually encourage that you also allow the owner to live in the ADU, because it might be an elderly
Yep.
resident that wants to rent out the large house, et cetera. One of the things we're watching is with the current legislation proposed, as a part of that legislation on the state level, they would not allow owner occupancy requirements, and it would have to be by right for anybody. That's working its way through the legislative process. There's proposed amendments to change that. Remains to be seen how it will play out. But as of right now, the town could impose an owner occupant requirement.
and just to clarify, like, those you still need to meet zoning requirements. It
Right.
is not really, it's not a free-for-all. You still have to be able, have a size enough lot to do this. And also, and I think I've asked this before, but someplace, like, I think Haverhill has an ADU bylaw, and you were not seeing, it doesn't lead to like major production, right? I think, I think the last I heard it was 4 or 5 units, that
Yeah.
they've seen go up because of that. Is that what you're finding? Is that consistent with what you see across the state?
Yeah, it's not a huge uptick right away generally, because what they found, when I say they, when we looked at other communities, typically the units that come online right away are the units that already existed.
Yeah,
And were either
that makes
rented out
sense.
illegally, or they were formerly in-law units, and then, let's say the in-law moves or passes away, you're now gonna sit on a vacant unit or maybe do something under the table. And so we mostly see units come online that were already there, and so it's legalizing these units, and that then allows you to do building inspections and that sort of thing to make sure
kind
it's
of
up to
not a
code,
bad thing.
et cetera. Yeah.
Okay.
And the ADU would apply across the board to all single-family?
It's up to the town how it want to do that as of right now. Again, the legislation is
Hasn't-
different.
yeah.
But if you were to analyze this and do this work today, you could put many restrictions on it. You could make it by special permit and not by right. You could require only attached and not allow detached, like a shed type situation. So there's a lot of variables. You can also prevent short-term rentals like Airbnb and say an ADU can't be on Airbnb. That sort of thing is all allowed.
Are those type of limitations things that you've gotten community input from?
The town did as part of its survey. I wasn't a part of that process, but they started to look at some restrictions. I don't know how in depth they went, but if you have questions, I'm sure the planning department can comment on some of those.
My last question, I promise.
That's okay, I have a question too.
You want to go first?
No, it's okay.
What I don't see talked about at all in any of the projections or any of the plans are two-family housing. I'm curious as to why, right? Because we do see a significant pushback on large multifamily housing. Could two-family housing be a bridge, a transition to residents who may be more averse to multifamily, as saying we can find ways to increase density, frankly double it, with still maintaining the look and feel of traditional single-family neighborhoods that people like? Is that ever addressed?
Seems
Yeah.
like that starter home.
Could be, but those are, I think,
Area
detached
could.
single, yeah.
Yeah, so we don't specifically call it out in here, but it could be a strategy that's added. It didn't come up during our community conversations, but it immediately makes me think of, as Kayla was just working in West Newbury, and a couple years ago, they passed a townwide bylaw that allows duplexes by right across town.
Yeah.
I don't know the specific restrictions in there, but there are certain restrictions the town could put on it where you can't all of a sudden double the square footage of your home. Maybe it's you have a bigger home and you split it or something. I will say there are practical challenges. We don't see a ton of uptake from property owners in conversion to duplex because there's a lot of money that has to go into that, but there certainly is some production that happens out of it, and it could be a great way to say preserve that character, especially if it already exists in the structure that's there. And when you think about a town like West Newbury, you think of rural New England character. They're not all of a sudden seeing some crazy change in their character because they're allowing duplexes by right.
We actually have that in the library area.
Great.
It's R4, and we do already have that. People got together and said, we don't mind you sharing your space with your kids or a rental or whatever, but make it look like it's always been here. It doesn't stick out. It's not a duplex, huge duplex with two-car garage on this side and two-car garage. That doesn't fit in with an established neighborhood. And it also cuts back on green space and, you get traffic because you got a two-car garage and a two-car garage, and then the kids grow up, they all have their car. But that's worked out pretty well in certain streets in the library area.
And it could be worthwhile to consider expanding that because of how it's worked out well. I'm not saying that's a definite thing you have to do, but it could be worth thinking what's worked well there, and you can
And
put other
you can't
restrictions
tell.
on in other.
When
Yeah,
you drive by it, you
exactly.
can't tell.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of it,
Yep.
that it doesn't ruin or just change the character of the neighborhood. So that has worked out well. But there are a few fixer-uppers, don't get me wrong. There are a few. I want to get back
They're
to
out
that.
there.
You have to just look and be diligent and be ready to move. But, on whether or not you're going to put an offer in. There are some that, they need some serious work, but one step at a time. I mean, that's how it was done
The only
generations ago.
The only single-family home on the market in North Andover right now is under $650,000 is on 114. So
Yeah, that's not that great.
No,
No,
so they really,
No, if you-
they really are.
Well, you could be far back from the road, but you certainly don't want to be raising a family when you're right on smack on
And that just
114.
adds to the challenges.
Yeah.
But
where we
they're
are.
there, and sometimes they don't even hit the market. That's
Which
the
is
thing.
even, that's a problem too,
That's a whole
right?
other question.
Like, yeah.
It is, I get it, but there are, what I'm just still trying to say is there are, sometimes you fall into the right place at the right time, and it's a great option. So keep your eyes and ears open and be don't be afraid of doing some work. It's not so bad. You get to pick out your own colors,
I don't disagree with you. That's what we did. I just.
Yeah, I think they, yeah.
I mean,
I know,
you know
I
what
saw
our
that
looked
house
at, right?
first.
But it went on the market in like December, and we just got lucky.
But because you kept at it. So I'm just trying to say that maybe there are some strategies that might, bring some good things.
I just have one more question for you, and it's more of a regional question, I guess, and to the West Newburys and the Newburys and the Boxfords, because we hear a lot, well, why isn't Boxford doing it? And I know that Boxford's not on
Right.
sewer, and that creates its own challenges, but it doesn't mean that North Andover or Haverhill or Lawrence should bear the full burden of the housing production. So if you guys could speak to that a little bit.
Certainly. And so certainly there's infrastructure constraints in other communities, as you mentioned. It's interesting because we're doing these housing production plans in every city and town in our region right now, in the Boxfords and the Newburys. And every community we go to, every community says we can't do it all on our own, and it's really, I hear that comment, but I think it's this for different reasons across each community. So the first thing I'll say is North Andover is not alone in doing this housing production plan. All 15 cities and towns are doing this work right now.
Which I think is important for people to hear, right?
Yep.
That we're not doing.
And they're analyzing what they want to do and what their current conditions are. And a lot of them have similar strategies to North Andover because they have some overlapping conditions. Newbury, I'll give an example. They just passed their MBTA community zoning. They're actually a year ahead of the game. They have until 2025. And they went above and beyond their requirements and zoned for double the area they were required to because they want to see more multifamily housing in their town. And then the other thing I'll comment on is I heard an interesting comment from one of the community leaders about a year ago, and he was faced with some pushback in their community because of housing. They said, look at Oxford, or they called other communities, they're not doing anything. And he said, it doesn't do us any good to compare ourselves to the people doing the least. We need to be looking at what we need to be doing for our town. And if we keep saying, well, we're doing more than the person doing the least, that doesn't necessarily position us well. We need to be thinking, what do we need for our community? And so that's what I encourage other communities to think about is, I think it's very easy to look at the communities that you may think aren't doing much and say, well, we're doing more than them, so we're doing enough. And then we dig into the data and we see there are plenty of opportunities and some needs in the community above and beyond what's happening right now. And so all the other communities, I think, need to be doing more. I think North Andover needs to be doing more, as we've been talking about today, and everybody's trying their best given their constraints.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Like, we need to work as a community, like as
Yeah.
a region,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's an interesting point about Newbury, because I don't think most people would expect that Newbury did that.
They're trying to they recognized a need, and they said, let's zone for areas that we think will actually see development.
And overwhelmingly passed, too.
Yeah.
It's not just-
2/3.
It wasn't, yeah, it went,
Well over 2/3.
that's interesting.
And that's the last part of a region, right? If you look at that demographic trend, and we're losing workers, this is about the overall region. Unless we can live, work, and play solely within the bounds of North Andover, the question is asked, what's in it for us? Well, we're a part of this region. A rising tide lifts all boats, and the opposite is true. So if the overall regional economy suffers because we can't house our workforce, we're all going to suffer,
Yeah.
whether we do something or not.
And we want that vibrant downtown, and
Yeah.
you need the people and the workers to support that.
Exactly.
I think you two are a wealth of knowledge, so I really appreciate it.
We're sorry to take up so much of your time, but
That's
we're happy
okay.
to,
Sorry
happy
to
to
use
answer questions
questions.
No,
anytime.
we appreciate you guys coming. Thank you so much, and
Thank
all
you
your hard
both.
work.
Madam Chair, can I just make a quick comment?
Sure.
Related to this vote? I just want to remind everybody that the Affordable Housing Trust does have a rental assistance program to help with that affordability gap, and a down payment assistance program. Both still have funds available, so I would encourage landlords, tenants, anyone to reach out and if they need more information on that.
Thank you. They can reach out to you
They can
directly,
reach out
or
to me, or their information's on the website. Our rental assistance program is administered by Greater Lawrence Community Action Council, and our down payment assistance program is administered by Bread and Roses Housing.
Thank you. Very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
All right. We're going to go over our meeting dates for the next 6 months, which means that, but that means that half the year's over, which is kind of scary, so.
Time flies.
I only see,
Do you want to know conflicts now?
I know, right, it's kind of.
Do you want?
So I think we don't always have 2 meetings in August. Sometimes we only have 1. If we see any that are a conflict right off the bat, we could talk about it right now and then go from there. August 5th is a conflict for me.
Same. Yeah, I'll be out of state, yeah.
So I think we just stick,
Where are we going?
in that instance, I think we just stick with the 19th.
Yep.
And if something comes up that requires us to have a meeting, we can pull one together, that's not a problem.
And then October 7th is the only other conflict that I have.
October 7th, okay? Let's take a look there. Do we want to move out to the Tuesday?
Let me feel, I'll be in Texas. I will be back, 2 seconds. I think I will be back on that Wednesday.
I have nothing on my calendar that far out, so.
I know, I'm like, I don't know.
Sorry. I'll be in Houston.
And the following week is Columbus Day, so we wouldn't want to go out a week.
I
That
fly,
would make
I,
sense.
I fly back out of the night of the 8th or the morning of the 9th, so.
We could do the Tuesday after Columbus Day, which would be October 15th.
Okay.
So it would be the 15th and then the 21st.
Yep.
I might have a conflict.
Okay. So why don't we
It's
hold?
so
yeah,
far out.
can
I
we
thought,
hold-
I really don't
yeah.
want to
Yeah.
throw it into the mix.
Let's hold that date right now then. And we'll just mark it as a conflict and we'll see where we go.
Okay.
Okay. Any other conflicts?
Nope.
Look at that. That wasn't too bad. All right. So we'll move October 7th. October 7th will be, and August 5th will be deleted. Thank you.
So what are we doing with October 7th? Just leaving it for
We're
now?
gonna start for now and see where we go.
If I can get out of that trip, I will, believe me.
No, it's not that.
I do not
Like,
want to
we-
go to Houston.
Depending on what's happening at that time of year, it may make sense to move back to the 30th or, so we'll just keep an eye on it.
And nothing's definite on the 21st, but it could be.
No problem.
Of October.
October.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. We will move on to new business. We've got a request from Eversource for Sutton Hill Road and Sutton Place for excavation, and they're here.
I don't even live in town, and I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting.
Well, check us out.
Yeah, my name's Cobb Benoit. I'm an engineer at Eversource. We have Bob McCann and Dan Gendron here as well. We just wanted to review a permit petition for Sutton Hill Road in North Andover. It's a relatively small project, about 1,700 feet of replacement, and it extends from 185 Sutton Hill Road down to Chestnut Street, and then Sutton Place as well is the affected infrastructure. So we're bringing in modern pipeline and replacing some steel that's in the ground because the town plans on paving the road, I believe, next year.
Yeah, we spoke to
So-
Curtis and John Bajasi.
Yes.
And they had a paving project planned, so we wanted to get some of the problem-prone pipe out of the ground and get everything fresh, so we don't have to revisit once you guys have everything.
So
We
you're
don't want to be
taking it-
digging up the newly paved road.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we don't want
We
you
like
to
to-
do that at all.
So we're trying to get ahead of it before you pave it.
Yeah,
So you're taking out the 6-inch bare steel and replacing
we're
it?
replacing the 6-inch bare steel with new high-density polyethylene plastic.
Well, you put it around
Pipe.
everywhere. Well, you guys didn't. do it,
Yeah,
but
yeah. So we work with the DPW a lot. Every year, we try to get your paving plan
Mhm.
to ensure that if there's any pipe that needs replacing or any leak-prone pipe, that we can avoid that. So,
What does the disruption look like to the neighbors? How much time?
Well, we are currently more than 3/4 of the way through the project.
Okay.
yeah,
So,
it's almost done.
And the homeowners in the area have been notified, and on a daily basis, it's very minimal. We will be replacing all the services to the homeowners in the area, but that's a day-to-day thing. And like I said, they've been notified, and we've been communicating. We'll be communicating with them when we go to do their service. We're not just going to show up one day and say, hey, we're here to do your service, and they're not home. So we try to stay ahead of it.
Well, so is this the neighborhood we had some runoff and drainage issues, if I recall, or some, and I don't, it's
There was a
probably not related.
there.
Was that?
Isn't there a daycare there? I think so. I'm pretty sure.
I may be confusing with something else. I was having some
But then we had another discussion.
stormwater
about
issues, I thought.
stormwater,
I think there's stormwater issues over here, right?
Relatively recently.
Yeah. I think runoff coming downhill, if I recall. But
Yeah, Debbie didn't note any concerns that they would create any additional stormwater issues. I'm
And they're
sure.
gonna fix it when they repeat, right?
Okay,
They're gonna work on
this
it
could
when
be
they
already
repeat,
addressed, just,
I think,
I just wanted to kind of orient myself. Okay.
correctly.
Any other question? Just be very careful.
We will,
Sorry.
yeah, definitely.
We'll never not say that to you.
Yes.
I'll take a motion.
I'll move to approve the request from Eversource to excavate Sutton Hill Road and Sutton Place for the purpose of replacing 1,716 feet of 6-inch bare steel.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, guys, for hanging out.
Thank you
all
very much.
Very much appreciated.
For your patience.
Feel free to come back, you might learn something else.
I know. Even the beginning was good with the nerding out with the.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to talking about the CPC project in the barn. We've got the chair of CPC, Bill Callahan, and our council, Chris.
Well, I'll just introduce this pretty quickly, and then Christine can run through the law part of it and kind of say what we were trying to accomplish. So we approved a grant for $205,000 to go towards the restoration of the barn on Johnson Street, and we're stuck on the grant agreement, which is why we're back here to talk about it. And so the concept of this restriction, I think where the friction is that it's privately owned structure. We know that. It will be restored and maintained in its historic condition. And we're providing funds for that. And the applicant does have a concern about a permanent restriction for $205,000 because you kind of look at it and say, like, this is a structure that, could cost well more than that, to replace if you ever had to, or to maintain up to those standards sort of forever. $205,000 is, not going to cut it. And so, when you look at CPC and how we've done these things before on private projects, we have done, we've kind of played a balancing act. How long is the restriction for? And how much money did we give, and how much, in relation to the project, and what, what's the return for the town. And so when the committee, we did spend a lot of time on this one because it was a little bit different than usual projects, and it wasn't us having it directly. And even, it's not a group that has historic preservation as its fundamental goal, like the Historical Society, where it's a little bit easier. And if we look through our history, like when we did the funding for North Parish back, I believe in like 2007, 2006, we did a 35-year historic preservation restriction. So we do have that sort of, template and idea, and I understand, where the applicant is coming from, and I think the committee is pretty comfortable with the trade-off. I also spoke to Stuart Saginaw from the CPA Association, the Coalition for Public Conservation, or something like that. I can't remember. But basically, he's kind of the umbrella group that deals with all those, and he said that's very common in other projects across the state, that there's a deed restriction for a period of years, and it's sort of a balancing act. And if you look through the agreement, there's lots of stuff about materials and keeping the original look and so forth. We are going to have public access to the space. We've built that in, 8 times a year, be made available. For people to come up and sort of take a look at it. And so, we do have, certainly way more than the public is getting right now out of that thing. We will have a nice plaque up there. We talked about some, exhibits and so forth, and we found the applicant to be, Ridgewood to be very good about, saying they'll try to preserve any any artifacts they find that might help tell the story of the barn and what was going on up there and so forth. So that was kind of the perspective of the committee, I would say.
From a legal perspective, as the chair was alluding, when the funds are going to property acquisition, then the deed restriction has to be permanent. But when, as in a case like this, it's monies that is going towards the preservation of some aspect of the building or the exterior of a building that is owned by a third party, then the act is silent. And that silence has been interpreted, I think, generally to be perhaps something different. And as I noted in the memo, there are some communities that take the approach that there will be a deed restriction, that it will be permanent in all of these cases, whereas others take a look at it and have it for a more limited period. I also added just some of the considerations that both select boards as well as a CPC commission would commonly take into account. And those would be things like exactly how much money is going to this private applicant, what do they have to do in response to that, for how long, what kind of an impact would those dollars have on the longevity of, in this case, a barn, the overall value of the structure compared to what the dollars that you're giving it. Would there be increased public access to this particular property or object as the result of the donation? And you can have a policy where you make these determinations on a case-by-case basis, or a community could just adopt an overall policy that all the applicants would have knowledge of at the beginning and have to live by. In some of those cases, it may be, I think as the chair had alluded, there may be, for some, that may put them out of the realm of really applying because for a variety of reasons, it might be cost prohibitive to go with a permanent restriction. I don't know if there's any questions, but that's the overview.
I would appreciate it. Any questions?
No, I think it's one of the ones who raised this issue. Initially, I think you guys have gone back and done some real good due diligence on it, and I feel a lot more comfortable than I did at the outset, so I see no issue. Yeah.
I agree with you, Brian. I know we all kind of said, hold up.
Yeah, pump the brakes.
But understanding,
I think I understand it better now.
what
yeah.
you went back and did the work so that we can understand it better. So thank you.
Thank you so much for doing that. I know it's a little different than what we normally do, so we appreciate you guys.
Do we need to vote on it, or?
So it's not on your business next, it will go
Okay.
on your next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you for coming back.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's okay to take licensing?
You can do anything you
I can
want.
do whatever I want. How do you feel about that, Mr. Chair? I just feel bad that these people have been sitting here.
No, that's quite all right.
Although I'm sure they loved hearing about everything.
Which is before, I don't know, I think that,
Which one?
I think the gentleman sitting in the front
It's
might
for-
be here for item D.
Item D.
I think, I don't know.
They're here.
So I just, if you want to go,
Yeah.
you want to ask?
Don, who's here for what?
Well, here, we can take care of our licensing for now.
Yeah, sure.
I'll take a motion to go into licensing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're now in licensing. Item A, an application from Kate Poulin, DBA Predictions Past, Present, Future for a fortune teller license at 1200 Salem Street. So just tell us a little bit about your business, please.
All right, well, I've been interested in reading since I was 12, and I've been studying since then. I'm in my 40s now, and I've been helping many people and predicting things that that have actually come true. So, and they weren't in belief until it happened, but things have happened, and I believe it's something that I'm like willing to do more with now and be more I've done Boston, I've done a lot of things and been hired other places, but I'm like, there's a license required. So I'm getting my license. If you guys all approve. And ladies and gentlemen, so.
I'll save my normal joke. I
know.
Open up to questions. You already know what we're going to say. I know myself. Any questions? Ms. Moon?
Is this out of your home or?
It'll be some out of my home, but on the phone, because it became some legal things when I was speaking with my lawyer. And then but I'd like go to people's houses and do things like that, so. And I've like, I'm learning more in my practice too, so.
Am I the only one who feels like wholly unqualified?
Well, you just read about it, but some of it's just natural. Like sometimes you get messages and it's just natural to tell people. And then basically, like I've started to teach myself tarot. Well, I've learned tarot, but then I've done, it's a different type of deck. There's a lot into it. So I could go on, but I've also I'm starting to learn tea leaf reading. So yeah, I'll get little states. I'm like, oh, I have this, and then I just put it together, and it all comes. And when I did it, and I practiced on my family, and then they're all into it. And they're like, this is great, and like you'll literally see things, and I learned that the dream book actually matches the images. Like so, the identification of what it means is similar. So, yeah.
Any other questions? I was going to say, I feel wholly unqualified to hazard.
Well, you all have it. You all have some intuition, so it's just going with your intuition, and if you really trust it, and what I use is just a tool. So, like the cards are a tool.
I will take a motion.
I move that the Select Board, acting as licensing commissioners, approve the application from Kay Pullen, DBA Predictions Past, Present, Future for a fortune teller license at 1200 Salem Street.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so what's next? I know, right? I appreciate the unanimous vote. Thank you.
Enthusiastic. Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number B, we have an application from Luis de Vargas of El Altalense, Altalense Incorporated, doing business as Pablo's Mexican Street Eats and Margaritas at 129 Main Street, right across the street. Everyone's very excited to hear from you, sir.
Hola, hola. How are you, everybody? I'm Luis Vargas from 5 Lingold Street, North Andover. My wife, Elsa Fregoso. We're here in business for 18 years in town. Casablanca being 18 years this August 11. And this new project across the street from you guys, so it's Pablo's Tacos and, burritos, quesadillas. It's something more like authentic cuisine compared to Casablanca, but we're the same. I mean, my wife be the manager here across the street, and I'm still in Casablanca restaurants management. And I get petition for you guys to get the common victor license and entertainment license. So hopefully we can meet you there someday and have a tacos together. It's a little different license, but hopefully we can meet you there. That's the petition.
To questions?
There's no margaritas yet?
Actually, on June 17th, we have the next agenda.
I'm just teasing.
With
We're all very much looking forward to it. We can
Thank you.
walk down to you.
Thank you.
We're just
I get asked every day at least once when you're going to open.
I know. We do a lot of renovation in the building. I mean,
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts was there, but we do make it really
You
nice.
did. I like
We do a
the
lot of
outside
stuff. Yeah,
that
we
you
do a
guys
lot of
have done.
stuff.
That'll be great.
Looking forward to sitting
Thank you.
outside.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
What are your hours going to be?
11 to 9 o'clock, because my wife, we have kids still, so we have to take care of the kids and put in the bed. So, all day and 9 o'clock, done. Hopefully, the more business, restaurant business or different kind of business, bring more business in downtown.
Yeah,
We have another place in Andover downtown, Casablanca, and hopefully someday North Andover turn like that. That's my wish. That's why not? I mean, why there and why not here? I mean, there's no reason why not, right? But hopefully, little by little, step by step.
That's right. We appreciate you investing
Thank
in
you.
North Andover.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you.
staying here.
Thank you.
So I'm excited. So when are you going to open?
Well, tomorrow we're making the food order, and we start prepping food, and hopefully the week can be ready. So
Perfect.
this
Love it.
week can
Perfect.
be
Love
ready.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I'll take a motion.
No, just a comment. It's great to see you back with
Thank you,
a
Rosemary.
new, yeah, nice to see you in it with a new venture. So we're really happy for you.
Thank
Very
you,
proud
Rosemary.
of you for, you built up that business
Thank you.
and in the area, and
Thank
you've worked hard.
Really hard. Me and my wife, we're working hard,
Yeah.
to raise the kids here in town, We're really proud of town, live in town, for 18 years. Now, yeah.
I can't believe how fast
Yeah,
it's
how
gone
fast,
by.
right? Yeah, thank you.
I'll move that the select board acting as licensing commissioners approve the application for Luis D. Vargas of El Altlens, Inc., DBA Pablo's Mexican Street Eats and Margaritas at 129 Main Street.
I'll second
I
that.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody, and see you this weekend there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
That's everything on our agenda.
I move that the select board acting as licensing commissioners close the meeting of the licensing commission.
I'll second that.
Second, favor?
Aye.
Aye. Back to you.
We have a request from Rick Gorman for Youth and Rec to use the town common for summer concert series and summer children's shows.
You know, it's exciting, the money from the ice skating at Brooks School is paying for these shows this year.
That is very exciting. Do you know if they're still looking, I've seen them looking for sponsorships, or do you think they're in?
I think they're
We
always
should
looking
plug
for
that.
scholarships.
You should plug that.
I think they would love all
Do you have a new
sponsorships.
business in town that you would like?
Yeah, but we're very excited, and we've signed, I just signed the contracts for all of these, so we're ready to go.
They always do a nice job.
Awesome.
All different age groups and everything in this, which is really good.
We love this.
I'll move approval.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. On to item G, we have a request from the neurofibromatosis. No, that's not right. To use Ingalls Street, Salem Street, Forest Street, Lacey Street for the annual Coast to the Cure bike ride. Is anybody here for that? They do this every year. Yeah. Yeah. So they just really come through town. Yes, right. Does anyone have any questions? No? I'll take a motion.
Approval.
Seconded.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And we are moving on to the request from the Cultural Council to use the Common on June 12th from 5 to 8 p.m. for the Pride and Popsicles and the North Andover Cultural Council Grantee Showcase. Stephanie, you want to talk to us about the event?
Yes. Hi, I'm Stephanie Dodd. I'm the chair of the Cultural Council. Thanks for having me. I just want to say that this is a really lighthearted summertime event with the purpose of fostering fellowship, connection, and pride, as well as showcasing the grantees and the programs that the North Andover Cultural Council has funded. It's part of the Mass Cultural Council guidelines. We can keep back some administrative money for a reception for grantees or a showcase or whatever, and so we voted to do that in the fall. And another sort of it's not sort of, it is a Mass Cultural Council guideline, is that when cultural councils do their own programming, that they really look at programming that isn't happening. And so this isn't really a full Pride program. This is just a chance to celebrate Pride Month, showcase our programs, and just connect as a community with popsicles on a summer night. So I'm hoping you'll consider our little event.
Anybody have any questions for Stephanie?
I just want to thank you for
Yeah.
seeing the need and
I
coming
love
forward. I mean, I
popsicles.
think it's really exciting to look at all of the grants that you guys give out, and
Because it's so under, I don't want to say represented, but people don't really realize how much work you guys do and what you support, and especially in the schools and.
It's a really fun, the North Andover Cultural Council is a really fun group of people. We have a new person, actually, just hearing the discussion about starter homes really warmed my heart. I live on Dale Street. I live in a ranch house that I thought was going to be my starter home 21 years ago. But I live there, and now I realize it's perfect for downsizing. I've got my second kid going off to college. But I live across the street from another ranch house, and it's a Merrimack math professor and his wife. They moved in 2 years ago, and they live in a small ranch house, and they love being part of the community. And he is new on the Cultural Council. He's Jonathan Grossman, and it's been fantastic to get to know people like that and just go out and go to the programming and participate in it. So
It's the right size homes for you.
yes, actually, they weren't about 10 years ago. It was not. Now it is again.
Now
So
it is again.
yes. Anyway, that's digressing.
And thanks for coming
Yes.
today. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we appreciate
Yeah,
your
we
time.
appreciate. So I know that banners were also part of the request, and I think everybody is aware that we're in a bit of a financial uphill road for the rest of this fiscal year, and it takes a lot of manpower to hang those banners and put them up and take them down. So I think what we've been talking about is what we did the first year with the Black History Month banners, and they went up in town buildings. They were displayed, and we're going to work with the school. Melissa talked to the superintendent about putting them at the high school and the school admin building, and we talk, if there's enough, talking about putting them in the rest of the school buildings. And we did the library, the senior center, the youth center.
Town hall.
And we can, or whatever, we can check with the historic center.
And just to sort of reiterate what Joe said earlier, that I think being seen, being recognized as part of the LGBTQ community in North Andover is huge. I will just share briefly that I live in North Andover. I've lived here for 21 years. I work for the town of Andover as a librarian, and I also attend South Church in Andover. And so yesterday I found myself at the Andover Pride Picnic, and it was a small, I would call it a small but mighty event, and South Church was heavily involved. And as a librarian, I was there to sort of represent books that we have that might be of interest to the LGBT community for all ages. And it wasn't, a huge event, but it was small, and it was very important to the people that were there. And I really hope, as a citizen of North Andover, I have a trans daughter. I just, even if it's small, I think small and mighty is the right way for us to celebrate the diversity in this community. I really do. So
I will say that each year, those of us who try to do some event around Pride think, well, maybe this year we don't need it, but we do it, and the response is always overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so it just speaks to the need, and people really enjoy it. It is, I don't know, it's just a really
it's just
important
a fun
part
chance to
of
connect. It's families.
being a part of a community. So
I was really kind of
anyway.
working at the event in Andover yesterday because I was actually on the clock for Memorial Hall Library, but just watching the kids who were just there, just out with their families, just to say hello and be in the common together, or be in the park, they call it the park, be in the park together. And I would really like for us to have a similar event here.
Thanks for sponsoring.
Thanks.
And Madam Chair, I just wanted to add that we did receive 20 public comments in favor of the Pride and Popsicles event, and those are all added to our public comment folder, and will be attached to the minutes as well.
Thank you for coming, Stephanie, and it's so important that we get those banners up and it's seen by the kids, especially. I think about the kids and that they need to see it. So.
Actually, I just want to say one
yeah.
tiny thing. Because I was on the clock for my work yesterday, but I will give you my impression of the event that happened in Andover yesterday, if you're interested. It was families, and it was a lot of middle schoolers. It was probably 60 middle schoolers. And actually, I recognize families from here. It wasn't but I mean, it wasn't 5,000. But it was a middle, and I thought, this is so fascinating to me, because these are the kids. It's so powerful to say, we see you, and we love you, and we, love you for all the things, the cultural council, all the facets of life that you're here for.
And that's the thing, is when you're showcasing all of your programming, they're going to find other things that resonate. People will find other things that resonate with them.
It's just a fun way to connect. But that was really striking to me, that it was almost a middle school event in Andover, and families.
Thank you.
All right.
So the banners would be donated, but but Public Works puts them up and down.
So
Yes.
not this year.
This year, what they'll do is they'll bring the banners to me, and then we'll put them up in the buildings.
Yeah.
Some
Like
of
you
them
have to
get
get
hung,
yeah.
some of them get hung on walls, is how we've done it historically. And other ones are actually on banner stands that we have somewhere.
Somebody will find them.
Yeah, we'll find those. And the one in front of the ad building, last year, I want to say we did put on the pole, because it's that one pole. It actually still is the 375th banner up. I noticed it this morning when I went there. So we could pull that down, because that event's over. But other than that, yeah.
Talking about the one at the school?
The one at the admin building, yeah.
Oh, is that what you're calling it?
Yeah.
Superintendent's office, that's
I
what I
know.
call it.
Yeah, at the admin building.
No, it's time.
Yeah, it's still up there. So we'll pull that one down. But
And
other
then
than that,
give
we
it to
just
the-
hang them near the front doors.
Because you need the bucket truck to
Yeah, to go up.
up.
Yeah.
And they're,
So
If you
it
get rain,
considerably
you
more
can't
work to
go.
put them
And
all
they're-
over the
it's so
commons,
many-
yeah.
It's a long story, but
And
they're
we're-
short-staffed.
they're short-staffed. We're mowing a lot of
We're
lawns.
short-staffed right now.
Yeah.
We're helping the schools.
Yeah, we're trying to help the schools as much as we can and be supportive. Okay, with that, I will take a motion.
So I move that the Select Board approve the request for the Cultural Council to use the Town Common on June 12th, 2024, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. for the Pride and Popsicles / NACC Grantee Showcase, but deny the request to hang banners on the light poles from June 12th, 2024 through June 30th, 2024.
Can I think we had asked for a rain date of June 13th on the original, so can we amend the
Yeah.
motion to include a rain date of June 13th, 2024?
Yes.
From 5 p.m. to 8 p.m.
What was the rain date again?
June 13th.
June 13th, okay. Do you want me to repeat the whole thing?
No, you can just say it.
Adding a rain date on June 13th.
All right, I have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We will move on to a request of the Festival Committee to use the Town Common every Tuesday and Thursday from 6 to 7, from June 25th to August 29th for the Summer Fitness Series. Ashley always does a nice job with this. Any questions, comments?
I'll second. People really look forward to it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Our next request is from Kathleen Keenan, our library director, to close Middlesex Street from Green to Main Street on June 26th from 4 to 7 p.m. for the Summer at Stevens kickoff event.
I'm still just a little bit confused, so where are they going? Because it's all fenced in, it's a construction site.
The construction site's on the
Other
other
side.
side, yeah.
This is on
They're
the
gonna-
Middlesex in the
In the
street.
street, they're
Oh,
gonna
they-
shut the street from corner to curb
Oh,
to
they're gonna
curb.
shut the
Yeah.
street down,
Between
okay.
library,
Yes.
yeah,
From the-
Patriots Park.
the-
right? Yeah.
Front,
Yes.
yeah, the back end.
Yeah, the historic entrance lawn will not be available because it is still ongoing. We just signed a change order, so I know there was some concern that we haven't seen that work continuing. There was a change order that needed to be done, which is now done, so you will see it continuing now. But that would be on the other side.
This is something they've done before?
No, this is our first time doing this as a kickoff event. We've never closed the street there before.
It's a nice
Yeah.
little easy.
It's so nice.
Cut
Yeah.
street.
There's also going to be popsicles. We're focusing on a summer of popsicles here. And cake.
And sticky fingers.
Yep.
They're used to,
No books for
they're used
you.
to road construction and closings in that
Yep,
area,
they
so,
sure are.
fine.
So,
So it must be
Oh,
to
yeah,
kick
it's
off,
a
it's to
maze.
kick off the summer
Summer
reading.
Two in
Kicking
one
off
event.
summer reading.
Summer.
Gonna be cornhole, lawn games, police and fire vehicles, face painting, a balloon twister, photo booth, and of course Scarlet.
I'm gonna have to borrow a kid.
I have one you can take.
you can have mine.
You can be the kid. Yeah, you can have mine.
I'll move that the select board approve the request of Kathleen Keenan, library director, to close Middlesex Street from Green Street to Main Street on June 26, 2024, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. for Summer at Stevens Kickoff 2024.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, this keeps coming up. We're going to be transferring $15,000 from ARPA to fund financial financial consultant for the school department.
So I have entered into a contract with a financial consultant who started last Wednesday. Her name is Judy, and her last name now leaves me because it's almost 9, and you all know I stopped functioning around that time. She was the school accountant in Andover and has retired. She worked with acting superintendent Pam Lathrop there. She's doing about 10 hours a week. Her current first thing to do was to just rectify and reconcile the 2025 budget numbers, and we have a do not exceed amount of $15,000 for her contract.
So this is not investigation, this is.
Nope.
This is just.
She's just helping us out,
Helping
get through
out.
the next,
Got it.
Yeah, getting
Okay.
it full.
close out this fiscal year and making sure that we have a most accurate budget going into fiscal year '25.
That's, I think it's a great.
It is great, yeah.
I'll talk about that, that we need to just get.
Yeah. Yep, so
I'll
she's great.
move
We're
that
very
the select
excited.
board approve the transfer of $15,000 from ARPA to fund a financial consultant for the school department.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I will pass the appointments over to our appointment subcommittee. You got
Madam Chair, just before we move into appointments, I just wanted to also let you know that we did have a public comment about appointments as well. There's one, it's from John Savastano. It is also uploaded to the file. If you want me to read it aloud, I can. I forgot earlier. But we do have that one public comment.
I guess
Um,
I'll defer to you guys if you want.
Happy to, yeah, I haven't read it yet, I haven't had a chance to see it yet, so.
Would
but-
you like me to read it aloud?
No, I don't think we have to. I
Okay.
can.
So
I
it's
can-
in the
You can look
public
at it, yeah.
folder.
I think he did request it, though.
Oh, do you request it to be read?
I'm happy to read
Okay.
it. So this is from John Savastano, and he lives on Green Street. I just want to know what the thought process is behind making people like myself and others go through volunteer applications and interviews after my almost 28 years. First, we at Emergency Management are not a committee. We are a separate department of the town. It is counterproductive to ask people who have dedicated so much to come before a subcommittee that has no idea what we even do or train for. Someone is not thinking clearly. I have seen appointments to NAEMA in the past couple of years by the board with no regard to qualifications or experience. This could put our team in problems if they don't have the training we need them to have. Fortunately, the people your board has appointed have never shown up for anything. Is there a way to stop the madness? We have been kicked out of our offices, then given a space that was uninhabitable, only to be pushed out of there, and given a garage again to be pushed out into the street. We always show up when we are needed or asked. We manage to bring in dollars when stuff happens. Just simply respect for the work and effort we have put in is all we ask. To have to reapply to stay part of a department is really not standing operating procedure. It is not required by any other department in our town and shouldn't be for ours. I am happy to meet with whomever thinks they may have an answer that makes sense.
It's actually a good opportunity to address the fact that we are in fact having people reapply, and it's really because there are so many boards and committees and we don't get to interact with people every single day.
Right.
And it's just a really good opportunity to have people come in and talk to us about how we can best support their board, what their experience has been like, and how we can make this all function better as we move along, because again, it's just too many people to have contact with all of the time. So it's just a really good opportunity.
And a reminder, I'm doing it as well with all of my committee and commissions too, and this is my third year doing that.
It just, it seems like good practice, to be honest, because I would like to see the faces. That's not a person, I actually don't think I've actually ever seen that person. So it's a great opportunity to be face to face with people.
I actually started the subcommittees because we couldn't all be together to interview all the time, years and years ago. And we used to have people just come in, even if you were noting that you were going to most likely reappoint them. What's going well, what isn't going well, what else? Yeah,
And we got
so
away
it
from
all
that.
ties in together.
Yeah.
I think
You're exactly right, Rosemary. That's a great idea.
And it's good, I mean, we've got new members and to be able to meet the members
And
on
then-
these big boards and committees that do
And it's
so
not,
much work.
it's every few years, it's every few years. It's
And
not-
often, they would just get put on a list if this position, or this position becomes available, that they're interested, so that you have you'd like to appoint this person, there just might not be an open in the area that they like. So it's great to interview anyways, and just be honest, we've got openings here, does any of these interest you?
And then sometimes
If
we
not,
try to
you'll be-
say.
You'll be
"Well,
on the
This
list.
is what we do have, so I
Yeah.
said.
No, and sometimes,
Yeah.
boy, you'd be great for this
Yeah,
committee. And
exactly.
then, like, we have someone who is our harbor master. I don't know. We convinced one of our
For that
current
big old
board
harbor.
members to be our
I
harbor
don't know. I
master.
was always amazed that we had a harbor master, and I love learning that.
To be on the boat all day.
I think that that's spot on, and I think lines with our thinking on the whole reason for doing this, to get to know people. Some of these people were appointed, I think, as he said, 28 years ago. Very different board. None of
It
us were here.
is, well,
right?
it's actually an agency, I mean, there's
They
certain.
may be a little
yeah.
bit different, but I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of folks who've been on a lot of these boards decades, and appointed by very different select boards. And I think it's really good for us to come in, have a conversation, get to know them, and
Right.
better understand their goals. It's I think it's really important, and it's the prerogative of the committee to do
And
that.
sometimes, too, you might say, we don't have anything for you here now, but I think you should talk to the town
Yeah.
manager for her appointments, because they might fit in. Yeah, well, I'm sure it does. I'm just
Yeah.
telling the people out there as well that, we really.
It's a great way to connect people with the community one way or another, so it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and clearly, it sounds like that he's got some concerns that we're going to listen.
It's a different committee.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
really even a committee, it's an agency,
Yeah.
but that there's different sets of skills.
Plus, it helps create a transparency on how on how the decisions are made,
Agreed.
which, may have been lacking at some point.
Great.
So, I can say that we have some things, some appointments to bring forward. We are looking for your approval to appoint Elizabeth Bagney to the Festival Committee. Again, really energetic, young mom, relatively new, been here a few years, and just ready to get involved. Eric McCarthy to the Sustainability Committee. Again, we had a rush on people who wanted to be part of the Sustainability Committee, which I think was really
And
cool.
festival,
And Festival Committee,
You should
yep.
reach out to those two girls that came.
I know, absolutely. And Renee Procopio Molino, who we will also appoint to the Festival Committee. Do you want to do the rest?
Yeah,
Split
sure.
it.
Tahani SDL Kalani, the Sustainability Committee. Emily Camp to the Sustainability Committee, and Neil Hamill, which is a reappointment to EMA and Festival Committee. So, and those are, I think, the two largest committees we're always looking for. Lots of extra hands. It's a great entryway to get into involvement in the community, involvement in the town. So,
And there's,
They're really important, too.
and the
Very
more
much so, yep.
more people on those committees, the more we can do. So,
Right.
That's right.
They had different terms, to term expirations. Is that from, some of them are replaced, just that position has different, term limits, or is it they were filling in for a vacant spot?
Uh,
A mix of
Positions
both.
are for different lengths of, they're
Just
almost,
of them.
they're almost all 3 years, but emergency management is yearly.
yeah.
And Festival Committee is yearly also.
Yeah.
Okay, so just different positions have
Yeah,
different terms. Okay.
yeah.
So will Neil's appointment to the Festival Committee have a different term?
They're each yearly.
No,
That's-
Oh, they're both-
Festival's also
sorry.
yearly, yeah.
Emergency
Yeah.
management are yearly.
So I'm not sure why that is, but.
So we can talk to them. so they-
But you'd think you'd want to build up, and I think that's something we should probably talk about too, for the yearly ones. I mean, to necessarily bring everyone in every year, we
I agree.
probably
We
should
don't
look
have
at that,
to- yeah.
Some more of the 3-year appointments,
Yeah.
I think is something we should, a little art to it,
And
not just
every
science, yeah.
3 years or.
Yeah, or people are refilling, expired terms or vacated
Right.
terms, those sort of things, so.
I'm surprised about the festival being just.
Well, you would think just because you do the same thing
It's
year after
just-
year, you want to build some momentum and have a 3-year.
Right, you
term.
finally learn how to pitch the tent. So you have to.
That's right.
And you're, yeah.
So,
All right.
so we're excited about this crop of
Can I make
volunteers.
a motion to approve all of those appointments, or do I have to do one at a time?
Ask the chair.
Usually we talk about end dates. So, meaning like we talk about the term.
Okay.
So I think we can make one big motion, but you should mention all the
Oh, yes,
terms
okay.
ending.
I can have that. I'll make a motion that the select board appoint Elizabeth Bagney to the festival committee for a term ending June 30th, 2025.
You can keep going.
Okay. I move that the Select Board appoint Eric McCarthy to the Sustainability Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2027. I move that the Select Board appoint Renee Procopio Merlino to the Festival Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2025. I move that the Select Board appoint Tahani SD Al, help me out with that? Kalani, thank you. Kalani to the Sustainability Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2027. I move that the Select Board appoint Emily Camp to the Sustainability Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2027. I move that the Select Board appoint Neil Hamill to the Emergency Management and Festivals Committee for the terms ending June 30th, 2025.
I'll second. Nice job.
That's a mouthful.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we did licensing. We're on to consent items.
I just want to say thank you guys for doing that. That's a lot of work.
Oh.
But great job.
Happy to do it. It's great to meet people.
Yeah, it's good opportunity.
It really can. It can be fun to meet new people, but it's a lot of work. That's why we just did 2 people in the town manager.
Right.
We're going to accept the donation to the Youth Center for the 2024 summer shows at the Common. I'll take a motion.
So made.
Second.
With a thank you note, right?
Yes. A motion and a second. We will send a thank you note, and all those in favor? Aye. All right, and then we have approval of our minutes, May 6th and May 14th. Does anybody have any questions, comments, changes?
I do not. I was gonna vote.
I'll move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any select board updates or comments?
I just wanted, I know he won't be watching, I don't think so, that Father Dealey did retire from St. Michael's, and he's off to the seminary. It's in Weston, and I believe he will be teaching seminarians. But he did a wonderful job, especially during COVID. All the churches and temples and religious organizations really had a hard time during that because they had to keep people distanced, and they saw a lot of religious organizations and others saw attendance go down. But wonderful, wonderful man. Then our new pastor is in, and he's a lovely, lovely young man priest, and so we're looking forward to having him as part of the St. Michael's community and part of the town, because but Father Dealey was a wonderful, wonderful man, and he, as we all know,
He'll be
he
missed.
he will be missed, but he was always there for the patriotic observance committees and blessing of the troops and the people that are there. So, yeah, he did a great job. So,
Calming
thank you.
presence and all those,
Yes.
yeah. He's been great.
I would say congratulations to the class of 2024
Yes.
who
Yeah.
just graduated, including Ryan has a graduate.
First one done, first one done.
So,
No more going out to dinner for you.
they have a bright
Mail
future
today.
ahead.
Oh, they didn't wait too long.
As I chaperoned.
Oh, the tuition bill was in the mail
In the
today?
mail today, yeah. It's
Whoa.
I chaperoned the all-night party too, and I
Oh,
will
good
say
for
that
you.
they are
Thank you.
incredibly well-behaved, polite, and fun young people, and so
And
looking
safe.
forward to
And
looking
safe.
forward to see what they do.
So it was a great night for graduation, and just ran smoothly with 347 kids. We got through pretty fast, and I will say that the student speeches were terrific. I was really happy to hear those.
Anyone else? Passed over to the town manager update.
Sure, so I do have an attached report. It was not working, but it is now. Just a reminder that on Monday, June 10th, from 7 p.m. to 8:45, we do have a Zoom meeting, which is the Kittredge Educational Visioning Workshop. So you definitely don't want to miss that. We would like people to weigh in now as we're going through the feasibility process. We want to congratulate Lynn Savage and the finance team on their annual Excellence on Financial Reporting Award. We want to remind people that we did receive a notice from the state that there was PFAS, which is basically plastics, measured in our fish that were sampled from our lake. And so they're telling people not to drink, not to eat. Anyone who's, please don't drink any fish. No drinking fish. Sensitive populations. Woo. Sensitive populations should not eat largemouth bass and smallmouth bass from the lake, and they should limit other consumptions of fish to 1 meal a month. And the general population should limit consumption of all fish from the lake to 2 meals a month. What's really important for people to notice is that there's no impact or concern for our drinking water. In fact, our water, due to our use of activated carbon in the filtration process that we use, we have consistently tested below the levels for PFAS for both the state and the federal government. And if you want to learn even more about that, there's an amazing report, which finally on page 58 from the state will tell you that our water is safe to drink, but additionally, today we emailed out our water quality report too. So reading those two will certainly give everyone assurances about our water. As you know, we hired the school finance consultant. We're continuing to work with the schools for fiscal year 24 and 25, including implementation of the school separation incentive. We want to thank the fire, police, facilities employees, as well as our state partners for their response and assistance at our hazmat incident at the middle school, which I think was only last week. I don't know. It feels like, is it 2 weeks now? It feels like a decade ago. But they did a great job keeping everyone safe. We got so many compliments on the work that they did, particularly moving students to the high school and making sure they got home safely. And it's good to know sometimes that all the planning that we do actually is for a purpose and goes smoothly when we need to do it. Our insurance company, or their insurance company for the contractor, has been covering all insurance companies have been covering all of the expenses. So that has been a relief as we roll into the end of fiscal year 24. And I believe that other than just we're in the middle of our annual road paving program, so please be patient as we work from High Street to Chadwick to Water, Johnson to Salem, et cetera.
They appear to be doing a really great job, though. I've got a
Yes.
front row view every day. And they started our house about 7, so no, which is all good.
They're great.
They
We've gotten
really
around-
are. They're polite. They work hard. They clean up after themselves. It's a really great crew. So,
They're a good
and I
group.
think that they're looks as though they're doing a really good job. And they, like I said, they put in long hours.
They're good.
Yeah.
Paved the sidewalk today, which is nice.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah.
A good step forward.
So.
Just a question, I guess, back to the schools and stuff. I guess we'll revisit that once the.
So once we have a final number, which will really probably be around July 15th, because invoices do continue to come in for work that was done prior to June 30th, into the next fiscal year, unfortunately. There's only 2 more payrolls left, which is helpful in trying to kind of get our hands around where we are. But once we close out the year, I will give you a final number on what the deficit was.
And the incentive for separation has been successful.
It's a success. We have
in the sense that-
successfully have applications,
Yeah,
and we are
okay.
beginning notifications this week. So it is going to be successful, though. Yes.
Oversubscribed? Do we have more
Yes.
demand?
Yep. So it's a very successful program. We're very excited about it.
Is it still, did you close that?
It's closed now.
Oh, it's, okay.
Yeah, it is
'Cause it
closed
had
now due to
originally-
the amount of interest.
Yes,
So
that's,
yeah. I mean, we can't. It's
Good.
a big success. So
it's a much
great news.
easier way to.
We won't have to have
go.
layoffs, and that's I mean, it says a lot. So yeah.
It's
Big
remarkable.
deal.
Yeah. So we'll just keep
Thank
plugging away on that.
And I know we know that you guys have been working really hard, and it's a lot of additional work that you've all taken on. So,
And they stepped up right away.
Thank you.
Yep.
They
And that
did.
helped, right? Because you guys stepped up and creative problem solving.
We're doing our best. So
But, and like we talked about earlier, some of the unintended consequences are that you can't put banners up and there's a spending freeze, and you just can't do those things.
there's a lot of things we can't not do right now. Lots of saying no on this end. But people have been great, and we can't complain. Everyone's really pitched in.
That's great.
So.
We appreciate it. Our next meeting is June 17th, 7 PM in this room, and I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.